by 16.79 seconds. Chloe Daggett was also on the podium for the United States. Demi Vollering of the Netherlands taking the silver medal, and of course Grace Brown with the coveted rainbow jersey. So as you can see, we've got some light cloud here, some describing it as smog. We're at the high end indeed of Central Africa here, equatorial highlands I think you might say. It's absolutely beautiful. There is very much a tropical feel to it. If you look at the mirror-like reflections of this small local lake here, you can see that there is virtually no wind, and it'll be similar conditions throughout the entire run today. So 27 Celsius and nothing too much to trouble us. It may well be a landlocked country, but it is so verdant and magnificent, and this is the course that we're going to be dealing with today. Watch out for the dead turn at the bottom before you come all the way back. Take on that double-headed mountain for the second time before the cobbles towards the end, and then the run for home. 31.2 kilometers, a proper testing course for the elite women, and we'll be starting proceedings here in just a few moments' time. Well, they signed on for glory here, and here we are. Thanks indeed to everyone who has come together. The UCI Commissaires panel is magnificent. They work extraordinarily hard to make cycling something that can spread throughout the world, and the love, of course, has now fallen upon Kigali here in Rwanda, an absolutely magnificent place. Everyone who has arrived has described it as being enchanting, not least the good people of Rwanda itself. It is a beautiful place, full of culture, and if you ever get a chance to visit, then please, please, please do so. It is one of the most welcoming places in the planet. Yes, it's had its own history, which we'll explore potentially a little bit later on. But, my goodness, it is a feast for the eyes. This is how we'll be starting off. Yeri Zavarin will be taking us first. Watch out for Hemani Hawisu as well from Benin. Halbwax from Mauritius, certainly one to watch out for. Of course, those who are seeded highest will be coming latest on, but Van der Breggen goes reasonably early. She'll be 21st from the finish. And indeed, Karabayol, we have Ika Biri as well from Rwanda. She goes a little bit later on. Ultimately, of course, we'll be finishing with the top five. Niedema Labous, Henderson, Daggett, and Demi Vollering to round out proceedings. Now then, this run is no easy task. It is going to be something that you have to fully invest in right from the very beginning. Don't go crazy, because with all the climbs that you have to contend with as well along the way, this is going to be a potential for a negative split whereby you keep something back for the end, and the end, of course, is that desperate test up the cobbled Kimihurura. 1.3 kilometers, introduction to 6.3%. It is going to hurt. This is about parking pain. If you can do that, then you can be a very good time trialist. It almost seems to be the main defining factor, the ability to give everything that you have, finish when you cross the line with nothing left, but make sure you have all the energies to be factored in along the way. First rider to come off the ramp, just getting themselves ready at the moment. The timekeepers are ready. My name is Carlton Kirby, and sitting alongside me is Rebecca Charlton. Rebecca, what a privilege to be here. It's party time.
It is, just as you bring me in, Carlton. I was just about to say what a delight it is to be sat in the commentary box next to you. But look at the scenes here. This is such a special moment. Of course, as you said at the top there, the first time we've seen a UCI World Championships in Africa, in this part of the world. And the celebrations, as you can see, are absolutely huge. And for me, seeing a lot of the riders doing their recce's and arriving there in recent days and absorbing this, which of course, pardon the pun, is just ramping up and up and up before the start of the women's elite time trial in just a few minutes' time.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. The mountain gorillas here, very much part of the scene with their conservation in the national parks. The
The party that we've had here inside some of the stadia has been, well, beguiling. Let's put it that way, shall we? Absolutely rack full of energy. Cycling in this wonderful nation has been very much part of the culture for an awful long time. In fact, it's the main mode of transport in many parts of Rwanda. And as a result, everyone absolutely loves the sport, and what better way to show off a nation than to have the UCI World Championships coming here to Africa for the very first time. There is a Tour of Rwanda, of course. It's been well established as part of the UCI calendar for quite some time, and so why not just spread the love of this magnificent sport that we adore so much, and indeed just celebrate African involvement. We've had some great African riders as well over the recent decades. Time for us to show it off and go racing with the women's individual time trial.
Yeah, we're very excited for it today, aren't we? For so many reasons. And I think actually, for anyone just tuning in to see the start ramp for the first time, of course, this is at the centre of a huge arena here. It's indoors that the riders will start off for their time trial. And I think it's just adding to the sense of occasion. And as you said there, with the Tour of Rwanda, the crowds and the support roadside for that are absolutely huge. And this is, of course, anticipated to be even bigger than that. So we're going to see such crowd support, and it means so much to this part of the world, doesn't it? But yeah, it will be Zaverine Nirere who will go off first. And I just can only imagine the moment and whether or not she's going to be able to fully absorb that. But as you said there, of course, she's the national champion for Rwanda in the individual time trial. She took third in the road race as well. So it'll be really interesting to see her take to the start today. And as I say, it means so much around this race as well. It transcends the race, I think, the impact this will have, of course.
It does. She's got about 3 minutes to go. Nervous times, and you can see it as well. She's had more hugs, I think, than perhaps a sumo wrestler. She is ready to get off and underway. There's so much goodwill. I mean, this is a huge thing. And just listen to this amazing crescendo to get us started.
It's giving me goosebumps already, Carlton, honestly.
It's time. Well, what a responsibility as well, falling on the shoulders of Zaverine Nirere. Primarily competes in Africa, won her nation's Eros Cycling Cup, won a stage and finished overall in the migration gravel race, so she'll be okay with the rough stuff towards the end of her run. Got herself 2 medals in the national championships, won the overall title in the Pipa Kawis Muga Build Wedo Oik Tour in Namibia, and so it is for her to start off this historic week of racing, let's not forget, with the women's elite individual time trial, the race of truth against the clock. And the truth is, we are just so happy and privileged to be here in your good company wherever you happen to be watching us. Time then for her to get in the zone and then get out of the BK Stadium into the fresh air and indeed start this run. Oh, magnificent. I do love, I've got to say, the Rwandan national flag. It has the sun rising from the east as part of its design. And kind of a nation reborn, I think you might say, and it very much feels that way. There's a real youth and vigor about this country, and you're going to see that when they scream her off the line, when the clock indeed counts her in. 30-second margin.
Big smile. That's great, carrying that burden of responsibility. There will be a roar when she leaves this start line and begins her run. 31.2 kilometres to be dealt with as quickly and as efficiently as she possibly can. The honour of starting us off here falls to Zaverine Nirere. Absolutely fabulous. She emerges into the light in front of the hordes that will line our route today. And she takes on what is a historic moment, but also quite a technical introduction to what is a long run of 31.2 kilometres. Now, because of the climbing, we shall wait to see our predictions as far as the length of each of these individual runs. But by the time they finish, they will know that they have been fully tested. Taking it gingerly, of course, at first. Last thing you want is to get yourself unstuck on some of those technical corners. But there's some rises and falls to this course today, some of which are extraordinarily significant. They'll be going off at 3-minute margin. I think the first is 2.5-minute margins, I beg your pardon, for this run. And here we are, 2 intermediate splits for the women's. The markers will be after 10.6 kilometres at 19, and then for the full 26. So we'll keep tabs. She needs to settle herself in, kind of put behind her the stadium that she's just left, and then start to invoke that thing that time trialists get into, known as the zone.
Absolutely. I absolutely loved the fact that she was allowing herself to enjoy that moment. Quite evidently, she had a smile, didn't she, on that start ramp? And it's such a historic moment for her, for everybody involved. It's huge. And yeah, I can imagine it's such a fine balance to absorb that moment, but as you say, go straight into that full focus. And yeah, loads to dissect in terms of what lies ahead on the course today.
Yeah.
Very happy because it's my home. It's a big story for my country, also for me. Yeah, I'm very excited. It's so fun.
What is going to happen here during the week? It's going to be crazy, a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. Everyone wants to see the Hogi, the world champion. Yeah.
I don't know who handed out the whistles. Hopefully they don't swallow it, because the excitement levels here are very, very high. We have 46 riders, 44 riders, I beg your pardon, from 36 nations competing here. Time for Qatar to start her run. This is Kholoud Al-Kuwari off the ramp and underway. Absolutely spectacular. I love the fact that the World Championships respects all nations, all champions. There will be some great divergence in terms of the times that we achieve at the end, but representing your nation, celebrating cycling, is what the UCI World Championships are all about.
It really is, and as you say, we are going to see huge differences in times throughout today, but I think something that's really prominent is the difference that we'll see in tech. And actually, we saw Xavier Nerere go off with a brilliant setup there, but we'll, in the early riders, of course, see quite a big variation in whether riders have the team support, have the funding for the team to have the full TT setup. Of course, we are going to see a lot of these early riders on their road bike setup, and that's what we'd expect to see. But as you say, the opportunity for these different nations, for riders to go up against the world's best, to gain that experience, to fill the World Championships, is what it's all about. So it'll be interesting to see the different technology that we see on the lineup today.
And Yeri, still with 29 kilometres of her run to be taken. Wide open highways at the moment. As you can see, the road surfaces here are absolutely impeccable. They've been looking forward to and preparing for these Road World Championships for such a long time. And this nation, after its troubles, of course, with the genocide in 1994, has rebuilt itself with the care and attention, I think, of the world, really. And the goodwill that has poured onto this nation is absolutely huge. And it just shows you how regeneration and, indeed, looking towards the future can actually bring an amazing nation, which is what we're dealing with here. Rwanda, I urge you to come and visit. It is spectacularly friendly. And, indeed, when you look at the countryside here as well, there is so much for you to enjoy. Today, of course, we're going to be playing with the roads, but we'll have some spectacular shots, and we'll be taking you around Rwanda as well to enjoy. Ethiopia, also noted as a great cycling country as well. We've had some terrific riders come out of Ethiopia. And this is Ser Kalem Watango about to get underway. there's a lot of support has come from all the African nations to make sure that they give their riders an amazing send-off.
Yeah, there really has. And you look at the qualification process for the UCI World Championships, and there are opportunities, as we nodded to before, for riders to have representation, that they are able to have a spot for their nation to line up. And of course, we've known that this is going to be the first time for a little while now that we would see the championships take part in Africa, and so there's been so many of these nations able to prepare to field this, and we've said, you know, time and time again already how special this is. That we've also had the brilliant work of Team Africa Rising. Since 2007, they have been working on the development originally in Rwanda, known as Team Rwanda Cycling, but it's further expanded in that time to really focus on under-23 junior development so that these young riders are ready to field at this level.
Absolutely, and as you look at Watanga from Ethiopia, she is just 23 years of age.
On est arrivé il y a 3 jours avec l'équipe du chrono mixte et voilà, on a passé
days. Very much looking forward to the mixed TT later on. It's super lovely here. It's everyone's been so kind. We've been out having a ride, we're exploring, been sweating a lot as well, to be honest. I think it's going to be super demanding, really very hard, and with the altitude and the humidity as well. I believe that it's going to be one of the toughest championship runs of my career. That was Cédrine Kerbayon, who earned a place at this her third World Championships after a strong season where she finished 8th overall in the Tour de France, you might remember. She's also French national champion. Earlier in the season, she won the national title for the second time in her career, and beating her compatriot, Juliette Labousse.
I'm really excited to see Cédrine Kerbayon in action today, because I think what we have learned, if nothing else, over the last couple of seasons, is not how well she can climb, but how much she keeps the pressure on descents as well. So keep an eye out for Cédrine.
There's Monica Kiplagat from Kenya. Do you know what? I think the drumming send-off is getting bigger and bigger as everyone just gets the flavour.
Oh, the anticipation for today has been so high, and it's been a long time coming because, of course, the preparation that goes in, not months ahead, but years ahead in securing the World Championships coming, and then all the preparations that go into that. So you can really sense that, can't you? That it's come to fruition, it's finally here, and it's exciting times.
It really, really is. I mean, when you look down the roster of nations that are here, this is, if nothing else, at least in the early stages, a massive celebration of cycling itself. I mean, look at the fans at the side of the road and how much respect as well they are giving the riders. This is an unusual thing, of course, for the entire African continent to have such an amazing event come and grace this sport. In a heartland, I've got to say, of cycling, then it's a privilege for us to witness, and of course for the fans to be able to cheer on in this, one of the most populous nations, I think, in all of Africa.
Completely, and as you said, we're going to start getting a gauge with our intermediate time checks, aren't we, of who's going to go into the hot seat, who might stay around in that hot seat for quite some time today, because of course sometimes we do see an early rider sit in that position for quite some time, and it was interesting, wasn't it, looking down the start order at who's perhaps going off when. So the reigning champion, of course, Grace Brown, is not fielding this race. It was a really interesting one, wasn't it, that she won so big in so many ways and then said, right, I'm retiring, I'm happy now, I'm off. And many people might or might not have seen that she announced this morning that she is pregnant. So huge congratulations to Grace Brown. And it was such a joyful post because she said, you know, I'm really excited to see a new world champion crowned today. Somebody else take this jersey, and it's not going to fit me for much longer, and I'm not going to be able to stay in the time trial position for much longer because I'm having a baby. So huge congratulations to Grace Brown.
Grace, if you're watching, it's been a pleasure to watch you, and best of luck. It's a wonderful time you've got coming. Here is Bokpo Congo from Botswana, off and underway. Yes, she was in the Bebekeri Charity Cycling Challenge, the activation ride. So presumably starting a whole new raft of yet more races, where she got herself a top 10. And as a youngster, this is going to be huge for her. Next up will be Natalia Frolova, one of the individual neutral athletes that will be getting us off and underway. The first benchmark, I think, and possibly somebody that may well find quite a few riders out there, will be Harmani Ahowisu from Benin. One of, I think, not amongst the favourites, but two-time Benin champion, extraordinarily. Of all the African riders, I think she's possibly going to be one of the very best. And she lines up with other very strong time trialists. Just completed the Maryland Cycling Classic in Baltimore, so starting to indeed go global as well, which is what this is all about. Bringing yet more African athletes to the pro peloton, be that women's or indeed men's, is very much an aim. This is a sport that celebrates the individual. It also celebrates national pride. And there have been many countries that have actually moved to cycling as a form of national promotion. And you've got to say that Rwanda has done that really well, with excellent racing in this country for many years.
Yeah, for a long time now, we've really seen that development, haven't we? And its presence has just been so known on the world stage of cycling, and the amount of work they're putting in to develop this sport. And I think that is what's quite prominent when you look at the early starters today, is that if you do look down their palmares and their list of results, they are a lot sparser, I guess. They're more sparse than we'll see at the pointy end of the action. But as you say, there's a lot of context to that, and we've got a lot of these early riders who fielded bigger races and not finished them, but gaining that experience is just so crucial to that development, as you say, not only for individuals but for them as an entire nation. So yeah, the levelling up of these riders today, this is a big deal.
Frolova coming off the ramp to start her run. These guys' arms are going to start hurting a little bit later on. I mean, can you imagine the impact on those wrists?
I think they've put in so much training. They are ready, Carlton.
I think
but having said that, I mean, talking about measuring efforts today with this course, I think they're going to have to start looking at measuring their effort there with the impact on the arm and wrist area. But no, jokes aside, I think it's going to be really interesting to look at the pacing. Of course, in our sport, we see a lot of short time trials, perhaps part of Grand Tours and multi-stage races. But today, this is a really important measured effort. And you've talked about the nature of the climbing and the elevation gain today. And in the land of 1,000 hills, it's not a small feat to make sure you pace it on the climbs, but really pivotal to that, when you look at all the elements that we're throwing at riders today, is the fact that they are riding at altitude at 1,500 metres. Also, you're looking at things like the air quality, and actually going into the red too early on the ascent with that pressure, I guess, to recover for the rest of the effort. Pacing is going to be so critical. And again, we'll have riders that have done a lot of full recce's, riders that haven't, people that have acclimatised, people that have had less time to do that. Also, when we look to the latter part of our field today and our later starters, it's really interesting to look at who's been fielding all the stage races, who's been maybe hiding and coming in a little bit fresher, having perhaps done more altitude training. So I'm really excited to see some of the unknowns answered today, because, yeah, pacing is going to be critical in this part of the world.
Well, this is the Volcano National Park, Rwanda's northern province, a place of legend, really, you might say. Mist-covered peaks is what it's all about. The walking and indeed some of the wildlife that you will come across is absolutely outstanding. Take yourself a local guide, by the way, if you are coming to these parts. It's by, I guess, for many European standards and beyond, it is not an expensive endeavour. And if you have a guide, a local guide, you're going to get the very, very best out of your experience. And experience is what we're here for. Tanzania's Jamila Abdullah is next off the ramp. And I swear that these guys are getting into party zone at the moment. I'm actually wondering who it is that they are teeing themselves up to give their biggest send-off to. And I think it's going to be Diana Igabire of Rwanda, who goes off very, very late and may well indeed be one of those that they're going to be screaming for. Yeah, it's a terrific day, this.
We'll have to see how they're getting on at the early time split, aren't we? Whether
yes. We are. Well, we've still got some time to go. Last rider will be coming off the ramp at 10 past midday local time. That's the same as Central European time. The latitude was explained to Rebecca this later earlier on. There's no
thanks, Carlton.
there's no time gap if you leave Europe and head due south. There's no jet lag, so fill your boots. Get to Kigali.
You've answered all my questions now about international travel.
We have 2 splits along the way. First timing point comes at the top of that more than a little ramp that you just seen. We're riding along here with Kiplagat of Kenya, and just look at the pace here. Perhaps this helicopter shot doesn't show you just how much of a grind this, but it's long, Rebecca. We take on the Côte de Nyanza twice. We do it once from this direction, and then, of course, we're using both sides of the highway. We do a dead turn at the southernmost tip of our course today, and then we come back and we do it again. First time is 2.5 kilometres at 5.8%, and you can see by the pace that really does start to eat in.
Yeah, and I think we so often cannot see from the TV screen just how much the gradient is biting and how much the other elements, like being at altitude to an extent, when you're looking at a course that's this kind of distance, it's longer than a lot of these riders will have contended with in terms of pacing and effort. So, yeah, I don't think we can fully appreciate sometimes how much those gradients grind when we're definitely sat in comfy chairs. But, yeah, the Côte de Nyanza will be really interesting, as you say, almost at 6% there as an average. And it will be also very telling to see these early riders do that dead turn, because I think that when we are looking at podium places later on today, it's going to be crucial to see how the riders do head towards some of these technical sections, how they do take the dead turn, can they carry any speed through, how much are they going to stay in the skis in TT position, and what gradients might force them out of that, and obviously measuring the aero gains of staying in position versus navigating anything slightly more technical to not lose that pace. And it's such a fine balance, and we've seen, haven't we, some of the best TT riders in the world in men's and women's cycling push to the limit to the extent that they crash. And I think it's such a balance, isn't it? It's such a fine line to absolutely push everything you can against the clock, but measure it enough, not only in not going into the red and burning too many matches before that first split. But yeah, there's so many elements to get right, and it sounds so simple, doesn't it? It's the race of truth. You're going against the clock, but when you throw all the elements into the mix, that's why some people are TT specialists and some people never nail it, because you've got to be on that limit without ultimately coming off when you're riding into a winning position.
Very much so. Pedestrian crossing just barriered off here. Great respect for the race, and I haven't seen, it's impeccably clean as well, I've got to say, the course. A little suggestion of some dust at the side of the road here, which is, of course, a time trialist nightmare when you get into a turn. And you can see from the ebbing and bobbing, really, here of our time check, as she sets her intermediate at 19:10. That's our first benchmark. First 20 minutes minutes into the run, and having done that rather hellish grinding climb, a little bit of rest by. I always think it's unkind when you get to a timing check and then you have to carry on climbing beyond it on a course such as this. Potapova is next to come off the line for Kazakhstan, a place where I've enjoyed the Asian Games and indeed plenty of others. Kazakhstan very much part of the forefront of cycling sponsorship as a nation. Familiar colours, of course, from Astana, the name of not only the team but also the capital of that great nation. And I guess colour scheme wise, pretty similar to the national colours of Rwanda as well, so maybe an extra cheer, I think, as well as she gets off and underway. Now, humidity today is quite high. We are, of course, in the tropics, reminded of the ever-present, there's a silverback there. I've been called that myself in the past, but anyway, I'm more kindly. Actually, they are extraordinarily gentle creatures, and if you actually get to go to the national park here, and we'll be having another little look at that perhaps later on. Yeah, it's spectacular. You can actually get extraordinarily close to, indeed, the gorillas. Guided, of course, I'll let you know. But yeah, part of a conservation program which has seen the mountain gorillas extend in terms of their population. And the Big Five as well in some of the national parks, including the Big Five are, I didn't know these were the Big Fives. I knew elephants, yes, zebras, giraffes, rhino, of course, and then buffaloes. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, apparently it's part of the Big Five. But anyway, the Big Five here at the RY'AMAGARE National Park, they have, I've got to tell you, just that they have raised 70 southern white rhinos. So yeah, they know a thing or two about conservation in these parts. It's absolutely spectacular. This is the King's Palace, the museum at Nyanza. This place, there was an original settlement, would you believe, that's been found that dated back to 8000 BC. Now, it was nomadic peoples, but the King's Palace, when the kingdom was established of Rwanda, looked something like this, and it's been recreated, and it is absolutely beautiful. It is essentially, I believe, pandanus leaves, which are indeed sewn together, hung upon, indeed, poles, and then assembled into this amazing palace. I mean, look at it. It's absolutely stunning. The Royal Palace of Nyanza, the King's Palace Museum, is here. So you can kind of get a look back into what life was like back in the day. They continue. This is Kenya's Kendra Tabo coming off the ramp. I'm just actually looking at it. You know, you actually look at some of the dates of birth here, and I start to think, gosh, I can remember what I was doing then. And it didn't seem that long ago.
I'm absolutely with you, Carlton. When I was looking down all the dates of birth for our start list today, I was thinking, hang on a minute, because of course we talked about the fact that we've had so many development riders coming in today, and those dates of birth are shocking to me.
Yes, exactly. Well, that just shows you how long in the tooth we are and how youthful and exuberant these athletes are. Frolova is busy eating into the 2.5-minute athletes. No surprise, really. This individual neutral athlete, Natalia Frolova. She's got a palmarès about her, and clearly the strongest of our early starters. So we'll see what her benchmark is. I think that will give us a real measure of how we go on from here. 16.7 kilometres from home for Zavarine Nirere. I think she would like to get home without anyone having passed her, and I think she's possibly going to do that. Frolova might have her within her sights, but the starting time between the pair of them was 13 minutes, so that's a lot of ground to make up. But then again, I'm actually thinking I wouldn't be surprised by some of the athletes here sort of nudging up towards the 50-minute mark by the time they complete today. It's a tough course.
It's really tough, and we could see that, couldn't we, as we saw that gradient increase, just how sapping it is in so many ways. And it is about measuring that effort, as we've touched upon. But we are going to see big time gaps today. We are going to see big discrepancies in this field, and it'll be really interesting to see who we have in that early hot seat. But I do agree. I think the RWANDA should go into that. We'll be able to get some more information as we go, and I think it'll also be really interesting to get sighting of all the points that these riders have been talking about. That dead turn, the cobbles, everything they've got to contend with today. We'll have an idea in a moment.
Well, here is Harmony Ahowisu of Benin getting herself off and underway. One of the strongest time trialists in Africa. She's done a lot of work. It was she that took part in the Maryland Cycling Classic in Baltimore, and when you know that, you realise just how global indeed the reach of cycling is, and it's fantastic that she's off and underway. Meanwhile, riding with Frolova, I think we'll possibly be staying with her for quite some time, because this, I imagine, will be our give us a genuine sense of how this course is starting to run. Aurelia Albrechts of Mauritius is also one to watch out for. Anna van der Breggen comes off reasonably early. She's about midway through our entire roster, and she'll be off the ramp in about probably half an hour's time, something like that. And when she gets underway, I imagine that at that point we're going to see just how wearing this course is going to be for some of the favourites who will, of course, come later. We'll be finishing off with Demi Vollering at the end today. When you have a degree of humidity as well, and it is described as a dry season, this, so it's not as heavy as you might think, but for some Europeans, they're very much feeling it, because there is a tropical sense to, indeed, the ambience here, and that can have a wearing effect to those who are not used to it.
Completely, and you've seen different responses just across social media and interviews pre-race from different riders saying, oh, I was really worried that the humidity would be huge and it would be a major factor, but actually they've said, oh, it's not as bad as we thought when we've got here. Other riders have suffered more as they sort of acclimatised in the last few days. So I guess it goes down to the fact that athletes are humans and from different parts of the world and have done different preparations coming in, and conditions are going to affect people differently. But yeah, I think some riders have said, I think Luke Plapp was saying yesterday that it wasn't perhaps as significant as they thought, but when you come in on the morning and you see what the ultimate temperature is going to be, how the air quality is feeling, how you're adapting to that altitude, there's so many elements at play. But yeah, definitely an interesting one here in Africa.
Paladin of Italy about to get us started. This is Soraya about to take to the ramp, and more Europeans are now going to start to reveal themselves as far as this course is concerned. She's had a pretty good run, the 32-year-old, a veteran status, I think you might say. Some of her results this year just been ebbing a little bit. She was 6th in the national road race of Italy. But she has achieved an awful lot. 2nd in the Navarra Women's Elite Classic behind Kat Ferguson, actually, at Movistar. So Paladin can actually pull it out of the bag on occasion. I wouldn't say that time trialling is possibly her specialism, but that means that if you're more of a classic rider, of which I think you can possibly say that she is, she won the Giro della Marcia in Rosso to announce herself, really, about 6 or 8 years ago. But also, 3 times she's finished in the top 5 in the Amstel Gold Race. That gives you a sense of the sort of classic nature that
has attracted some riders. It's actually put a few off as well, I must say. Some of the pure time trialists have said this is too tough for them and haven't made the trip, but it's opened it up. There's a wider field of riders who could actually achieve here.
Yeah, it's a really exciting day. I do truly believe that, because yeah, it's a very interesting mixed field, and I think, as you say, there is disappointment in some of the riders that we aren't going to see fielding the TT in the men's and the women's today. And of course we want all of our big names in attendance, but some have decided they're not going to do the travel, make the journey to Rwanda because the course simply doesn't suit them, and they don't think they're in with a shot of a significant result. So there's a lot of people absent, but having said that, there's a lot of people here that can do some really big damage today, and I'm excited to see that. Soraya Paladin, such an experienced rider, and also just looking at her individual results, I'd say you've got to temper that with the fact that she's done so much work as a teammate this season, and crashing out of the Tour de France Zwift. It's immensely impressive how quickly we see riders come back, isn't it?
I'm always stunned by it.
And I do talk about it a lot because I don't think you can get away from the fact. Firstly, how are they superhuman superheroes? But also, I don't think we can shout about it enough, that element of riders coming back to huge form so soon after a broken bone.
You want a specialist? Huao Zhang is one of those. National road race champion last year, and fourth in the nationals as far as time trialling is concerned. She can go very, very strongly, and I'm suspecting that this actually will be a bit of a screeching performance early on, because she's not afraid to go very deep, very early, actually. Some riders are attack-minded, but they get themselves up to that pitch and are able to hold it. Others, because they know that they're quite peaky, need to keep something back and rise up towards the end of a course, and it just comes down to your own sense of your own survivability on this kind of course.
Completely, and it goes back to the way we've watched some of the best TT specialists in the world measure an effort and win, doesn't it? Because actually, you might look at time splits and think you can predict who's got it, but we've seen very experienced riders get it wrong and fall apart. We've seen people going for our records and get it wrong. So it's the people that get it right, just to state the obvious, and it's really, really important.
The Akagera National Park, located in Rwanda's eastern province, stands as a powerful symbol of conservation and success. This is what I was telling you about. The big five, well, they're here. And of course, most of them, of course, will be visiting a waterhole a little bit later on. Giraffes. You know, I absolutely love giraffes. And I've always thought, because they look like such gentle, graceful creatures.
So gorgeous.
Don't mess with a giraffe, that's all I'm telling you. Whereas buffaloes, you're thinking they look a bit scary, and they're just lovely. Elephants, somewhere in between. You get a grumpy elephant, you're going to be in trouble, but an awful lot of them are just spectacular majestics.
Come face to face with a grumpy elephant and put that on the bucket list.
Meanwhile, baboons, grapes. Don't eat grapes anywhere near a baboon.
Really?
Oh,
I've learned a lot already today.
they love grapes. They will have you for grapes. Yeah, a baboon's favourite thing. Is your hippo? Doesn't like the stalks getting too much. Once the ticks are gone, all you're doing is pecking the hippo. You don't want that. And lions, can I just say, steer clear, stay in the car, that's all I'm saying. You get the idea.
Picking some topic items today. Not just gear ratios, but who to avoid.
Yeah, and indeed, what not to eat near a baboon.
Which is important to know, arguably.
Oh dear, you can see how tough this day is. Even amongst the very best, those who can go deep, like Leslie has today, just finding out how hard this is today. The sense that the camera is upon her as well, doesn't want any distractions. Meanwhile, there's plenty. Look at this.
Look at these crowds, this is what it's all about.
Wow.
There's so many riders today, is absorbing this level of experience, going up on the clock against the best World Tour riders, the best professionals in the world, gaining the experience of a race of this scale. You can't say enough how significant that is. RY'AMAGARE here, of course, our first rider off this morning for Rwanda, Rwandan national TT champion, pretty handy in the road race as well. And I think she'll be able, before, about the riders that are more specialists in the TT discipline, people that drill their effort day in, day out, do wind tunnel testing, test their kits extensively, have the absolute best setup. There is a huge discrepancy in our sport, and indeed today, with different nations, with different other riders haven't got that level of experience, have they? That they know how to best deal with that pressure, how it's going to feel going from doing that rather more comfortable recon to going into today on race day. So we're seeing some riders that perhaps won't get that perfectly right in terms of measured effort, but we're just going to see some absolute fireworks as we go through today.
This is Lola Al-Mari, just gosh, trembling. Fantastic. It just shows you the weight of expectations that some have. This will, for some riders, be the biggest stage they've ever performed upon.
Completely, and that's why it matters, that's why it's important, because until you go out and you do this, and you do it in this level of a real scenario, you're not going to have that under your belt. So that's why we've seen this part of the world doing so much cycling development, and it's just getting better and better and better, and it's really, really important. Now, I know a moment ago we were just talking about how effectively riders come back from crashes, from injury. I mean, we've seen it so prominently, haven't we, in recent years, with the best riders in our sport being taken out with huge detrimental effects, huge injuries, but coming back so quickly. And I don't know about you, Carlton, but sometimes I have to go back and check myself on when was it that they had that incident race scenario, because it is seemingly like the blink of an eye that they're not only back in the peloton, but they're back to winning. And so we were talking about Soraya Paladin, who's of course started her TT effort today, and she broke her collarbone in that crash in the Tour de France Femme. At stage 7, she had to retire from the race, and it'll be really interesting to see how that recovery's on for her and how she goes today. It's quite an early starter.
Do you know what? I did my collarbone, a compression fracture in my right collarbone in 2016. I still haven't got over it. That was a long time ago.
I'm not laughing at the fact that you're not over a significant injury, but it's when riders at world level are experiencing these injuries, it's just such a different, obviously it's a different process, but in terms of the medical attention of the bigger riders, it's so crucial, isn't it? Because they're straight into an assessment. Do we need to do surgery? I presume when you and I break a bone, we don't go straight into the option of patching yourself back to full form within a couple of weeks. And you're often told your recovery time, aren't you, around 6 weeks perhaps minimum for a broken bone, but riders are back so fast because a lot of them do have the expert team of medical experts around them to get them back so fast. But sometimes we do see people come back too quickly and then suffer along the line a couple of seasons later. So it is important to get it right. But I am sorry that you broke your collarbone.
He's a better wrestler. Miran Abra is next for Ethiopia. We will have Norway's Ugdet after that. Miran Gulise from Mauritius, followed by Marta Hussens from Belgium. So you can see it's a proper global mix that we have. Patapova we are riding with at the moment, just to give you an update on some of our checkpoints. Timing, it is Frolova that has set the benchmark at the first timing point. She's been through there in a 19:10, same time actually as RY'AMAGARE, so they are actually tied. Not quite sure, because it's actually gone to the thousandths, those two timings. So I'm imagining that possibly one of them has gone faster than the other. But for the time being at least, Frolova and RY'AMAGARE are issued with at the exact same time of 19:10.77. Not quite sure that is even possible, to be honest. But anyway, they'll get separated a bit later on if they're running the same transponder. You just Ratango is a further 18 seconds down, and then it really does fall away. Kipka trailing by 3 minutes at the first timing point, and you're going to see some very big gaps. They will start to compress a little bit later on, so don't worry too much about that. This is going to be a well fought for course, and as you can see, Nyerere is actually coming to the second checkpoint. In fact, she has been through it at a 32.33. Ratango nearest to her, but giving away 47 seconds as it stands at the moment. So half an hour into the run, 39 minutes in fact for Nyerere. We did say that don't be surprised if we start to see some riders nudging up to the 45-minute plus marker. But we'll get our first benchmark. I think some quick times today will be able to give you a better assessment of what we're expecting once we get the opening times through. A little bit of a hint there of the rainbow bands, as you can see, but only in reflection at the moment, as we have our start house here at the BK Arena. And next off is Sigrid Uterhus Utset of Norway. Gosh, we've actually nudged up towards the Arctic Circle. We're back down, indeed, probably the longest trip actually. We're now back down all the way here at the tropics, the equator almost, essentially. She comes from Burkak, and that is nudging up towards the Arctic Circle. That's a change of environment.
For sure, and we're starting to get into the part of today's field of starters in this race. We're getting some really familiar names that we've seen plenty of action throughout the Women's World Tour season this year. And going back to a rider you mentioned a moment ago, Anna Van Vreggen, she will be going off in a few riders' time, just actually after Tennille Campbell, who I'm excited also to see back in this field today. But yeah, we're going to start to see some names that could be pretty big contenders for getting a firm seat in that hot seat.
Well, just look at this. By the way, that I believe is the central market. It is. It's the Kimo Ronco market. Now, not only for you, is it lively, as you can hear, fantastic. Do you know what you can get here? Batik shirts. I know. I'll show you mine later. Yeah, it is spectacular. I actually once went to a market such as this. It was actually in Timbuktu, and I said, I want the full costume, please, because they actually made by hand. Here we are. These are amazing. So, full costume, please. And they said, none of them are for sale. I said, what do you mean? They said they're commissioned by families, and you can only have them if... I said, what's the lead-in time? He said, 6 years. And then one of the guys comes and he says, there is one, actually. We haven't seen the family for 10 years, and so we think we can let it go. And anyway, if you ever want a fancy dress party, I've got the kit. Welcome, the king. Anyway, right now, we are dealing with... I've been around a bit. We are dealing with, from Mauritius. This is going to be very effective. I love the kit, I've got to say. So, it is Aurelia Awas, reigning time trial champion from the African Games. That is proper. So, as you can hear, we are getting rather excited. And even the start, look at this, taking every single one of those curves with exactly the right apex. You know, experience makes you an awful lot, but the line, without having to overcorrect, is actually a big thing. You can essentially you shorten the distance by taking the absolute correct line, but getting that and mastering it at pace is a difficult task.
Yeah, exactly, and it goes back to the point we were talking about before in terms of doing recons, but then racing at this level and doing it with the pressure in front of the crowds, with the conditions on the day, with so many unknowns against the best riders in the world. It's another thing to get that right, and yeah, it goes back to the fact that we have seen people get it wrong at the highest level, going for the top 3 podium places.
Check this out. Cobbles. You're kidding me. This late on? No, we're not. It is a proper test late on. Now just start looking at elbows, wrists, and you'll kind of see what the impact is. That's essentially the body's shock absorbers. And this is not a pleasant environment to be in. It's great for us. 1.3 kilometres, 6.3%. So not only cobbles, but a climb as well. You're going to know you have been under pressure. Look at that. 11% as a maximum. 6.3 average over the 1,300 metres. And the most difficult part, and you can see it, the way the buildings are indented into the side of the road here. What a tough way to finish.
This is such an interesting course, and we talked about it earlier on in the programme, didn't we? But now we are seeing the reality of it. You can see what this is taking, the toll it is putting through the body for Nyerere here. And yeah, as you say, this is over 6% average, which we're really seeing now. It's heightening up to 11%. The Côte de Kimihurura, and it's cobbled. You know, it's not just the gradient. You can't just look on paper at the elevation gain today. It's cobbles, it's an ascent, it's dead turns, and we're seeing it all at play now.
Absolutely magnificent. And it goes on. This is Houston's. Well, they're coming second fast. Marco Houston's off at the ramp and starts her course, and as you can see, fully dialed in right from the very beginning. I'm not saying that there's any disrespect to anyone who has already started. It's just that right now you're starting to approach near specialists, and then we will have very much specialists coming on a little bit later on. Nyerere is doing a fantastic job. This is the biggest day of her cycling career, dare I say it. Doesn't matter what you've done before, if you're representing your nation at your home world championships for the first time in Africa, this is magnificent.
It's huge for Nyerere in every sense of it, and we're just keeping an eagle eye on this road surface, aren't we? And I'm sure she is just desperate to get to the end of this cobbled section now. But she's the national TT champion, isn't she? And she is first off the ramp for Rwanda today at this level of World Championships. It just couldn't mean more to her. We saw a smile, for anyone that might have missed that in the coverage earlier, we saw a smile on that start ramp, an acceptance, an acknowledgement of every bit of support, attention and magnitude that was there for this rider, and yeah, she's within the last 2k now.
Paladin dominating the opening intermediate, as you can see, for Italy. That really is almost a turnaround, I think you might say. We're seeing a gap of about 40 seconds for Paladin, 37 seconds, I beg your pardon, over Frolova. Nyerere, though, she did a phenomenal job at that point. I'm still suspicious about exactly the same time between Frolova and Nyerere, but we'll have a real time at the end. And Nyerere is about to just crest this. She's only 1,500 metres away from the finish, but look at this grind. The cobbles haven't stopped.
Yeah, and we're just seeing how long this section is. And again, I think, you know, we can all, the riders, team managers, we can look on paper, but until you've done the full recon, until you've done race day, you know, this is a long section to contend with. And people would have looked at so many technical elements today in terms of their setup. Tyre pressure is going to be something people are looking at for this segment. And the setup, how often can you stay in the skis in the full TT position? And you can see Nyerere here just contending with these cobbles and on the lower setup of the bars.
Well, we did say between 45 and 50 minutes for some of the riders here, and this is going to be a decent time actually by Nyerere. But I'm actually looking at the shockwaves which are going through her body at the moment. She's not relenting at all. She's still got 1,200 metres to go. This does ease up a little bit. She'll get back to regular asphalt in a few moments' time. But I actually fear for some of the cobbles here. I'm not quite sure how well used this road is. If it's newer, it's worse because some of the cobbles will be sharper on the sides. Can you imagine the heartbreak of getting a puncture late on some of that surface? Finally, she sees the Flamme Rouge, and her day is about to draw to a close. And we will offer up our own applause for what has been a fantastic run for her into the barrier section right now. A couple of curves to take, and then she will draw her run at this opening elite women's time trial to a close. And I've got to say, chapeau to her.
Chapeau, she's done a brilliant ride. She's back into that TT position. She's back on smooth tarmac off of that cobbled segment, and she's got 600 webs coming up to 500 metres to go here. And this is a big, big moment. And what a ride she's put in today. Look how smooth this is coming in.
Do you know what? I am proud of her and what she has produced today. This has been as brave as you like, and it is a very good time as well. This is our first benchmark. We said 50 minutes. Can she bust it? That would be lovely. She's on a 49.8 now. Just watch that clock. She'll be heading to the line. Slightly indented on the right foot. Nothing wrong with that. I have slightly indented left foot. I find it comfortable. She has been through hell, however, to get to this point. Nereri about to stop the clock. It will be the first time on this first elite race of these World Championships. The first time in Africa. Can she beat 50 minutes? That's what we want. Just coming up to the crest right now. We've got a foreshortening camera here. It's a grind to the line. Come on, Nereri. This is brilliant. Bring it home. Do it for Africa. And most importantly, do it for this magnificent nation of Rwanda. They're all filming her. We're cheering her on about the last 100 metres. It's going to be just outside the 50-minute mark. But what a proud moment for her. A great day for Africa. And a spectacular moment as well for all fans of cycling globally. 50.07. That was impressive.
What a moment for Nereri, and this rider will now go into the hot seat. She started off all smiles, looking quite measured and relaxed, but then gritted teeth all the way to the line there. This is huge for her, for Rwanda, for everybody watching today. Let's just see the reaction. First rider off into that hot seat now.
Average pace today, 37.3 kilometres per hour. She produced a 50.0767. That is the target time. We're having a workout what we thought the average pace would be today and what sort of time we might get at the distance. I think the first thing we said was 50 minutes, and then we thought maybe 45. Let us wait and see. And I think a lot of the field are going to be in that window, aren't they?
Yeah, we are getting, we've come in notice for every race. So we want all the answers, we're going to predict it, how's it going to play out. But do you know what answer I think I've just taken from that is that I think we and maybe some of the riders underestimated that final segment, because actually it's, even for us here in comfortable chairs, that felt like a long drag through that cobbled part of the race. And even when it smoothed out and she was coming into the closing metres, that was a big slog, that was a big effort, and we've marked how brilliant that ride was. But it took some doing to really measure that to the line, and I think that's in part been underestimated perhaps about today's course.
That final crest, I mean, it is hellish. The grind to get over the line, the only respite you get appears to be in the last 50 metres. She practically fell over the line there.
Oh my goodness, and yeah, it was really interesting to see again predictions on how much the riders would be able to hold position, and she was certainly out of that, wasn't she, to just make sure that she could just maintain as much smooth power as possible across that cobbled sections. Here's Marta Gleason's here, and we talked about a discrepancy happening through the field today. Look how smooth she is in the TT position.
Isn't this an absolutely beautiful building? It's actually based on a beehive, and it's just absolutely spectacular. It fits the landscape perfectly. Whoever was the architect, then we take our hats off to you. That is amazing. Yao Zhang has set the benchmark at the first split, by the way, and it is a strong one through that first timing point. 34 seconds better than the field. She has a minute and 12 over Nereri, who has already finished. So, yeah, we are starting to see some big trims of indeed times throughout. Who looked very purposeful. I think we described her for the first couple of corners that the Chinese athlete took.
Yeah, completely. And you can start to see the people that have had the
support around to put in the work it takes to be in this position, but actually being able to secure the best time possible in this duration of a time trial, you have got to find that balance, haven't you? You can't be in a super extreme position that ends up being detrimental and that you can't get the full power.
Just at the very last, you can't do it. It's the last bit, you have to get there. There was a bit of a roller coaster. You come off up over the cobble section, you actually go into a little dish, and indeed you finish on an uphill lip before very, very, very late. A little bit of respite. Here's Daniel Campbell from Trinidad and Tobago. They produced some spectacular track riders in the past of Trinidad and Tobago, and I always love watching them.
I love Daniel Campbell. She is an absolute joy to interview, a joy for our sport. Here she is now, taken to that start ramp, and she will be so focused today. She is another rider that has not only impressed as an individual, it's transcended that. She has done so much for the cycling community in Trinidad and Tobago, and coming into the World Tour, representing, having so many injuries, set up, and she always had a heart on her sleeve and said what it means to just represent at this level, and I love her. I think she's brilliant. What a role model.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, why not? If the World Championships can come here to Africa, and we've seen, of course, Asia starting to rise as a powerhouse, and why not? Trinidad and Tobago. I'm putting the bid in right now.
Here she is, Anna van der Breggen. I am very excited, as you can tell.
Okay.
I like in terms of cycling fans getting treated to so many. Anna is coming back to World Tour Peloton, having been DS. And I was like, hang on, please tell me this is true. Because it was so exciting to have the news that she was going to come back in at, having been away from professional racing is just so staggering. And then she's back to this peak performance today, so it's really worth noting where she's had to come from in preparation. But here's Anna van der Breggen.
Well, we've seen her on the track, we've seen her on the road. We have seen her just about everywhere. Twice a world road race champion, let's remind ourselves. But when you look at the roster, she won Flanders, she won Australia Bianchi, Amstel Gold Race. I mean, it's actually easier to say things that she hasn't won. Well, she's won our hearts as well. 35 years of age now. She has moved around the world of cycling, let's put it that way, but she has come back to, well, a moment right now which could prove for this veteran, she's 35 years of age now, something amazing. Let's see how she goes, shall we?
I'm really, really excited to see how she goes today. It's always
in a sense that she's got nothing to prove, and because of that, I think she'll do something spectacular.
Yeah, and just if you just watch exactly that, if you just watch her level of expertise, she is textbook when it comes to riding a time trial. We've seen her win so big in Grand Tours stage races where she's been able to solo to victory, and she's one of those riders where you think, okay, maybe she's forcing a break here. Okay, no, she's gone solo. Oh, she's gone very early. Okay, she's still solo like 50 kilometres later. She is a rider that can do this and can deliver solo, and so she's immensely exciting to watch in her technicality, the years of experience she brings today.
Well, 5 medals in the time trial, let's not forget, for Van der Breggen, but also the title. That was in Imola in 2020. So, you know, I think she's got time to be national champion as well in the discipline. So why not today? Can you imagine what a story would that be?
She's won it all, and
medals again. That would just be
and the story will be spectacular because of, as I say, the narrative coming into the season with people saying, well, let's just watch what she's capable of doing, because we all know that not having the race days in your legs, it impacts even the best riders in the world. Of course it does. She was a director sportive very successfully for Team SC Works Pro Time for a number of years before deciding to come back to racing. You've got to assume a big part of that with knowing that the Tour de France Time Legs is now on the calendar. It's now possible to field that for the women's peloton, which has been another huge pivotal moment for us, for a big talking point. But she is back, and she's not just back, she is back at the very top end, so that'll be immensely exciting. But here we go, another big name today.
Off the ramp for Poland, a nation that always punches above its weight, be that on the track, and particularly when it matters. You get to pivotal moments, be that, as I say, something like the Olympics or indeed these World Championships, and Poland always seem to be able to punch above expectations. Niewiadoma, though, is somebody we expect a lot from, and I guess in a mixed course, she might be able to surprise even more. We talk about time trials, pure time trials, and you talk about those who are more adaptable, perhaps. I think that's why Van der Breggen, we're expecting a lot from her, as we just ride here with Soraya Paladin, who is absolutely eating up the opposition out there. She is finding riders left, right and centre. She is dominating the time checks at the moment. She's the fastest by a margin of 48 seconds at the second split. Jeng coming through here as well. So we are starting to see some spectacular performances throughout the entire run, and Paladin leading and comfortable. What about Van der Breggen? Classical time trialling. She has a little bit of lateral movement, but it's where she feels comfortable, and sometimes finding that comfort on a bike is more important than aero purity. I've seen a lot of riders actually go into tunnels, and they've been put into the perfect position, and because they're uncomfortable, they actually generate less power and are less effective, bizarrely. You have to find some comfort.
Completely, and I think a really prime example of that is when we saw the peak of the battle between Anna van der Breggen and Annemiek van Vleuten. Everybody used to talk about their positioning on the bike, because you could look at Anna, her face, her demeanour, her body language, she always looked so calm. Annemiek would have a much more animated style, look like she was throwing it around, and then you'd never be able to tell who was going to take it out of the two of them, because their stance on a bike was so different, but they were both able to win Grand Tours, go solo, do the big mountains. They had the capability to go head to head in that with two completely different styles. So if you were to say to Annemiek van Vleuten, okay, so try and position yourself more like Anna van der Breggen, well, that wouldn't work for her. And I think it also, yes, it wouldn't have gone down well, because they were both the best in the world, so you wouldn't need to alter their position. But that's another thing. It's easy for onlookers to say, oh, I think they're slightly toe down or they're heel out, or I would correct that. But if it's working for them, they don't need to correct that. They've done so much testing with the team to see where they need to be, and they've got it drilled, they've got it right, it works for them.
Frolova, despite sharing the early intermediate split with Nirere, the difference between them at the third checkpoint was 10 seconds, and the fade has continued throughout the run, I'm afraid, which actually, all it does is underscore what a spectacular leader we have of this race, probably spurred on by national pride Nirere. But Frolova, I'm afraid, is going to find herself way down, and that hot seat was very comfy, I must admit. Park and hold.
This is our first sighting of the actual hot seat, isn't it? With Nirere in there. You could just see her sort of already just hands over her face. Because it's such a hard place to be, isn't it? It's a joyful place to go into hot seat, but you want to stay there for as long as possible, just to state the obvious. And but this just goes to show how important that pacing is today.
And what Nirere did, I mean, she's hiding her smile because she's a modest person and doesn't want to be seen to be celebrating. I guess almost the failure of others. Exactly.
I would be hiding it. No, I take that, and it's really interesting, isn't it, to see the array of emotions when someone has gone into that pole position. They are sat in that hot seat, and we get to see them watching every rider take off around the course, who is going to beat them, who's going to best at the time. And it's a really interesting element of time trials, because sometimes we do see an incredibly strong rider go off early, and then they are there with bated breath for so long. But we have some incredibly fast riders out on the course. Here's Marta Giessens at the moment for Belgium, and just look at the speed. And I've been really trying to squint in at the setup and the gearing of some of these riders to more recent starters, because we know how much pressure and power can be potentially retained on the descents. So that's going to have been a really big balancing point for teams and riders coming in today. Looking at the tech on the bike, looking at the gear ratios, whether they go for 1 or 2 at the front, is because not only have you got the gradients, but you could potentially still at least maintain or gain on some of those power descents.
This is Van der Breggen, just coming through at, it'll be our initial checkpoint along the way, still with an awful long way to go, but this should be a mighty trim, one can only imagine. Let's wait and see. We've seen some strong performances out there. Zhang and Paladin seem to be measuring themselves against each other at the moment, waiting for the third timing checkpoint for both of them. But I think we're going to be starting to nudge down closer towards 45 minutes by the end. At the moment, Nirere has a finish time that was absolutely spectacular, over a minute clear of Frolova. Watango has also finished, nudging up towards the 2-minute mark. Kipaghat coming home 7 minutes and 47 further away from Nirere, which shows you what Nirere has managed to pull out for this course. Of course, I am absolutely certain she has probably spent an awful lot of time practicing. And there's no shame in that, I imagine. I imagine the authorities have given her several runs on closed roads to make sure that she produces a good time. But she's lived up to the billing. It's all very well starting off as favourite, but you have to get into that spotlight and accept the burden.
I've just distracted there for a moment, because we just had sight of Marta Giessens there, and we were talking about how pivotal aero gains are today and staying in position, and her number has fallen down. And yeah, it's not an ideal thing to happen early on when we're talking about everything on the skin suit being perfectly slick. But yes,
may I say something?
Yes, you may.
It might actually help at dissipating the air off the back. Did you know that they actually the most aero rendering of hair on your legs stick with it, is actually to shave the front of your legs and leave the back of your calves hairy. Because of
Do you think she's positioned this number?
I
for the aero
know
game?
it's deliberate, but I actually think, strangely, it might actually be helping. The odd little watt or two to dissipate, rather like the golf ball effect. You have dimples on a golf ball, and the reason that it flies further than a smooth golf ball is because it traps the air within those little, there's more eddy currents formed within the ball itself, and so the air that it's going through passes over more air, and so it actually has a less impactful effect. So yes, there is a dissipation factor here, but I'm not saying it's deliberate by any means. You probably rather have the number in the right place. Not anything else, you can hear it.
It might be a slight distraction. But no, it is a really interesting talking point. Well, it's very interesting for me as an after-tech geek, I must admit. But it is really interesting, and I've been privy to wind tunnel testing, to track testing, where you just constantly alter the smallest factors. And I've just had my jaw to the floor at the difference it makes immediately when you change one tiny factor, like you say. And we've understood more and more, haven't we, about aero gains over the years. We've had some really key riders just pushing forward the development and the understanding of why it really matters. And we joke about these things, but it could be as simple as one little ridge on a skin suit or something like that.
Amazing.
And I must just throw in my huge tangent that when I was heavily pregnant, I went cycling with one of our lovely colleagues, Matt Stevens, and he then started the talking point that pregnancy bumps make you more aero because he believes that is a fact. And then I said, yes, but if I'm more aero, I'm going to say that's going to be outweighed quite literally by the fact that I'm barely on the brink.
Yeah, exactly. No, that effect I was telling you about, the reason why javelins, for example, have a sort of a rough surface on the tail, it's exactly the same thing. The problem is, if you only shave the front of your legs and leave the back of your legs hairy, it looks terrible.
I'm not sure it's going to be worth any gains for me to do that, but it is good to know.
Exactly. Anyway, moving on. Apparently it's also hairy legs make it very painful to receive massage.
That's the other thing, isn't it?
Yes.
That is the other thing.
Off we go, and they're coming thick and fast right now. This is wonderful. It feels like a big party today. And why not? Our friend from Norway, still plying a trade up on the course, and let's just give you some updates, shall we? Zhang is still quickest at the second split, so I'm expecting the Chinese athlete to come through the third split as well. She's a minute and 12 up on Paladin. Is this Pazarova coming to the finish now? It is. And still, we have Zavrine Nirere in the hot seat and has not been upset yet. Look at the heat haze we're starting to see generated as well. And as we get to a hotter part of the day, which is just a natural thing, of course, as the sun indeed starts to rise. And the same as Central European time, so we're just after 11:30 in the morning, local time here. Patapova comes to the line, and they all know how tough this has been, but every single finisher we have just adds to Nirere's kudos as the home favourite, doing an amazing job.
Yeah, so Zavrine Nirere, the first off the ramp this morning, we were talking about how she had to measure the effort with the huge support that she's got here, with the fact that the occasion for her was so massive, being the debut rider to go off in these World Championships, absolutely huge, being the Rwanda National TT champion. There were so many things that she had to measure in the way she handled today, and the ride she put in was evidently fantastic, and I think we said, didn't we, it's very hard to tell with the first riders, letting the first rider off, what we're expecting from the field overall, but she put in such a measured effort. Her position looked so smooth, she got absolutely everything out of this cobbled section towards the last few hundred metres, and yeah, it was job done for her, and she still sat in that hot seat. It's amazing.
Paladin just catching Benin's Westfield, and indeed sailing right, did the right thing, just got out of the, gave a decent gap between the pair. You're not allowed to sit in before 10 metres have been extended. That doesn't look like 10 metres to me, so I'm afraid that the Benin rider is getting a little bit of aero assist, possibly just being warned. Over to the other side of the road goes Paladin. Now don't forget that Shang is also on course. She'll be coming in behind Paladin in a few moments' time, but as it is, driving for the line is Paladin. She's already caught her 2.5-minute athlete in Ahowisu. We're staying with Ahowisu right now, so the motorcycle doesn't get involved in a negative way, but now is allowed to move forward by the commissioner. Good work. And so it is that Paladin is in the most difficult part of the course. Now Paladin will be picking up, I presume, fairly soon. Meanwhile, further out on course, this is Van der Breggen, and just look at this first intermediate. The clock's green. She's not that far away from the intermediate, so one can only suspect that this is going to be a mighty trim. We should wait and see. We've got some great riders out there. I desperately want to get back to Paladin actually to see her finish because I think she is going to take the lead. So relieve Zavrine Nirere of her position in the hot seat. 12.9 kilometre marker is going to be this split, just a little bit of pixelation. You'll forgive us for that. But she's going to bring this one home. We're going to see a lot of chops and changes. This is essentially, I believe, going to be the first one. So it is Soraya Paladin, who has had a road back to recovery, and she's on chair, I imagine, in a few moments' time. Here's Van der Breggen, and there is the Tissot timing, and look at this for a trim. Van der Breggen finds 50 seconds as a trim for the fastest so far, celebrates with a little toot on the bottle, and she now has to finish the job.
She has, but that's something she knows so well, is measuring her effort. I don't think I've ever seen her so well drilled at perfecting a time trial. I think what was so interesting coming into this season is how she would fare, and she's just...
But she's into the Rainbow Stripes hoarded section. Here we go, heads up, just to this crest. The top sticks in the first sub 50-minute time, and all credit to Paladin, just at that respite zone right now. It's almost cruelty in action as you watch it. Back out of the saddle, just wants to get the best time possible. You see the line, but actually it just seems to go further and further away from you with every pedal stroke. There is this little dish she has to go into and come out of once again. It's not the most challenging finale in terms of geography here, considering what she's already put in, but stops the clock at a minute and 30 trim. We've got a 48.36. That is a very strong time. And thanks to Zavrine Nirere for setting a great benchmark. But it's Soraya Paladin that takes the lead.
Yeah, tough moment for Nirere there. She'll leave that hot seat, but we just once again must mark what a brilliant benchmark she put in early on today. That's Soraya Paladin, just weeks after breaking her collarbone, retiring from the tour. Here she is now back in that hot seat.
May not be there for long because minute 12 is rated at the third timing point. And Zhao Zhang coming in, always very dialed in terms of the efficacy of their sports programs in China. They do physiological and sometimes psychological testing to make sure that athletes are absolutely cut out for them. Wow. Whoa, 47.23. That's a time.
That certainly is, and typical of me, just as I'm talking about who's taken to the hot seat, of course, it's going to immediately switch, and that's another heartbreaking point in a time trial, isn't it? Because riders just go to sit down, and then they're straight out, and if you get times now, coming thick and fast, and
Yeah, no, plastic sacker, sorry. It's a tough old game. That was a fantastic ride by Xiao Zhang. Congratulations to her. Let's see how the splits start to reveal themselves, because I've got to tell you that Norway's Ugset has just taken off Zhang's time, 46 seconds at the third checkpoint. So if you want to hot seat, you better go sit on it quick.
I would. Just the next rider came in, I'd run over, park myself on it just for a moment to sit there. But yeah, difficult when you're not in it for long. But it is showing us just the class of the riders that we've got out on the course now.
Absolutely wonderful, still in recovery mode, and that is going to be the watchword for quite a few. 10.4 kilometres for Hoostens before she finishes her run. Sigrid Itterhus Ugezed, I think I said that right, is fastest through the third timing point by a margin over Zhang, who's just set our benchmark at the finish. 46 seconds for good at the third checkpoint. That is enormous.
Talking of enormous time gaps, I think we're going to she has got her head positioned as well, and that little look up and then tuck back into position, and it makes all the difference.
Well, you're starting to see athletes eat into those around them. Martha Hoostens just tracing a golden thread through this tapestry of pain. Gosh, I need to get a t-shirt made. With that phrase on it. Van der Breggen tucks in a little bit of shuffle here on the saddle. You see her encroaching the front. Let's see her readjust herself again in a moment. This is one of the things that can actually happen with a one-time run is if you can't stay planted. And it's a difficult thing to mitigate against. We've had gripper saddles in the past. We've had some rather shallow skits, and then it began to eat through in. And that wasn't a good look. So actually kind of ebbed a little bit. But occasionally you see riders just struggling to find that comfortable position. It's a mark of how much power they're putting in that they get out of position and then have to readjust. If you're constantly readjusting, it doesn't help.
It doesn't, but if you look at how solid she is now in this position, I think it's all about, I've talked about, surprises on the day, haven't I, and the conditions, you can't utterly predict them down to the final element, exactly what the temperature's going to be, how the exact humidity is going to be the week you come into competition, but if anybody knows exactly what to expect from herself and the position, but you're right, yeah, there's some shifting around there, but she is very, very used to being in this TT position. She has put hours upon hours and hours and hours, not only throughout her entire career to perfect this, but recently she will have put such a big focus on today as well. We talked earlier about the fact that we've got some really big names absent from the men's field, the women's field, and whether or not they thought they could target a result today. The fact that Van der Breggen is fielding this TT means that she is well drilled and well prepared to do something special.
That's the voice of Rebecca Charlton, who's joined me, Carlton Kirby, here for the UCI Road World Championships. We're in Kigali, in Rwanda. Well, there's been population here since 8000 BC they found evidence of, and quite a few things have changed about the party right now. And that's because this is the first time, of course, that the World Championships have been held here on the African continent, and it won't be the last because it's been absolutely spectacular. Beautifully organised, and of course, thanks to the UCI and Monsieur Lepartillon and indeed everybody who have collected together to produce what has been an amazing achievement. And just look at it as well, we have retina-fizzing sunshine. There will be even conditions for absolutely everyone throughout the run. A near perfect time trial, you might say. Well, some time trialists will possibly disagree with you, basically saying this is maybe not for the purists, but that makes it even more entertaining, because the questions that now we have as to who will thrive in this feature trial as featured altitude, but there's a lot in this course. We've got 460 metres of elevation gain spread over the 31.2 kilometres of the course, which is significant over such a short distance. So there are rises and falls, there's cobble sections as well. It's brilliant.
It's utterly brilliant, and it's even more brilliant because there were elements of the course that we'd all had a look at prior to today, thinking they might not be as taxing as they could be, but they evidently are. That final section is brutal after everything else they've contended with, and with the duration of today that we're looking at, this level of distance for a time trial, and that elevation gain, it is all about not going into the red too early in those early time splits, as we just see Anna Van der Breggen there overtaking Neil Campbell, who went out ahead of her today, of course, for Trinidad and Tobago. But here we are with Anna Van der Breggen, and I keep talking about the importance of pacing, and it's even more important when you're looking at riders taking on the altitude that they are at today, and the things like the air quality, the humidity. If you go into the red on a climb, it's bad. If you go into the red at altitude, with that contended with as well, recovery becomes all the more difficult each kilometre you go on.
Let's go Sigrid, Slovenia, in their familiar national green, Slovenian racing green apparently. There we are. We will of course be seeing that in a men's race a little bit later on as well. Certain Mr. Telly Pikachu, you may have heard of him. He will be going off.
He's not bad.
He's all right, you know. Well, he can push a pedal. Meanwhile, we come back to this spectacular. It's a finish at the convention centre here, and Ugset is going to unseat Bao Zhang, who has only just finished. And well, we said that some of the best may well be busting the 45. We're not quite there just yet, but we're getting close. It's going to be sub 46, and Xiao Zhang is also rather wonderfully applauding.
Gracious.
That's just lovely to see.
Yeah.
You know, she's still got the velvet throne as it stands at the moment, but
Celebrating there
exactly.
for Sigrid Itterhus coming in here.
How lovely. Line is about to welcome Ugset. She's still got this little rise and fall to deal with. And margin is going to be less than a minute, I think, by the time she reaches the line. But what a performance this is. Just about there. Here we go. She trims 59 seconds for a 46.24. And rather wonderfully, Xiao Zhang applauds her rival for what she has just achieved.
Yeah, she knew, didn't she? She knew she was off on her way out of the hot seat and took a moment to celebrate the time of Sigrid Itterhus here. And yeah, that's a nice moment.
Absolutely wonderful. It's a glorious day, isn't it? It's it reminds me of this road of the run down from the ridge down to Eyam. Oh, yeah, I'm talking Derbyshire. Only because of the greenery, perhaps, but not the weather. And not the food either. They do a spectacular here. Some of the cuisine in this part of the world are absolutely wonderful. So yeah, got a little bit of a piquancy to it as well. If you care to enjoy, some of the open air restaurants here are absolutely gorgeous. It's film festival here as well.
Look at that smile.
How lovely. She's done it. She's finished.
So it's land of a thousand hills. It's where we have.
This is rather beautiful they are as well. In fact, some of the black tea that you enjoy does indeed come from Africa. You talk about all the amazing teas. I've got that here in Rwanda, they're particularly proud of their brew.
Able to get out of each part of this course, and we know how fast these descents are. But gearing, again, has been such a consideration coming into today to get over the ramps, but to really maximise what you can do. Because when you're looking at those top three places today, the medal contention places, that is going to mean everything in terms of how they can keep carrying, of course, at every point today.
You know what? In any kind of speed event, and I remember talking to the director, I enjoyed most it's hard. And I just thought that is absolutely right, and we're seeing that from RWANDA. It's an easy bit. Don't take a break. This is where you can make a difference, because if everyone else is taking a break, power through, make the easy bit hard, and you're going to do something spectacular. And that's a big giveaway, I'm afraid. A minute and a half down at this point, that's a surprise.
It is a surprise. Passion Uvedoma, we know her class, we know her all-round ability as well, that she can really succeed in different disciplines, but looking to suffer there.
Look at that, to the way that curve was and how quickly she was not fearful about grounding a pedal. That is knowing your machine apart from anything else, knowing the lean angles, knowing when you can get the power on as you come out of a corner without actually getting yourself destabilised and into trouble. She kept that so smooth. This is wisdom.
It is wisdom, and that's what she brings to our sport, and that's why I'm so delighted she is back in this fold of the World Tour peloton at the very top end of it. And I think, going back to my point before, when she announced that she'd come back, there were big question marks over whether you can be out of the sport. We know she would have kept training, of course, she evidently did, but whether or not you can translate that into race success is another thing, and she came into the Spring Classics and did exactly that. And I think we then had such high expectations of her all season and just went back into thinking of her as an out-and-out favourite, forgetting that she's been away from the sport. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to get some more answers today. But here's Anna Kiesenhofer, who many people will, of course, remember from her win at the Olympic Games in Tokyo, where she just, she made a staggering move and secured that victory, and I think surprised herself, although perhaps not, because I think she was well aware of her capabilities. But she's had a really interesting journey in this sport, coming out of the protein fold for 2025 and actually taking on a coaching role in Team Picnic Hostinel and the team staff behind the scenes. But she's completely decided, right, I'm going to focus in on the World Championships today in the time trial.
Gosh, this looks like a challenging start, I must say, for Rusa. Hope she's okay. I mean, to me, Rusa is potentially our favourite for today. So Marlin gets herself ready and underway. This is going to be very, very special. Reigning Swiss time trial champion. Swiss time, of course. Swiss time is running out, famous line. Which song is that? Smoke on the Water, of course. Deep Purple, we know that. Deep into the red. Hoosens, I'm afraid. 47.53. She'll be a little disappointed with that, I'm afraid. We'll get back to Marlin Rusa in a few moments' time. 3 medals, 2 silvers and a bronze she's had, of course, in the Worlds. But last year, she's had a bit of burnout, which is a shame. Self-declared, I've got to say. But yes, she is, when it comes to time trialling, absolutely spectacular. Tour de France Femme in July due to illness, which is something that you have to retrieve, to bounce back from. And in fact, everyone's going to get bad luck in their career, and illness, I think, is one of the most unlucky things. So it's got nothing to do with form. It's got nothing to do with kind of injury, really, and your recovery rate.
Every hard, because I think there's been so many big narratives that played into how good this season's been, and I genuinely believe that this, for me, is the best season of women's cycling we have ever had. It has just been spectacular. And I think, and we've got eyes on Kiesenhofer here, it'll be really interesting to see what she can do today. And but back to your point there on Marlin Rusa, there was a lot of illness going around, stomach bug sickness, and we know that can spread not only throughout our team, you're all sharing rooms, you're at Grand Tour together, but it can transcend that and go through the entire peloton. And we saw so many people with huge targets coming in spectacular form to the Tour de France Femme being immediately taken out with illness. Of course, most prominently being Marlin Rusa, to fall victim of that illness. And she was quite open, as she normally is in interviews, which I love because she's so candid. But she was saying, yeah, I'm just too unwell to even consider being an IP. We saw that very early on, forcing her to retire. There's Brodie Chapman of Australia starting, another person that we always talk about in a time trial, because as you'll see, she's able to push it to the limit.
Well, in Oz, everyone, of course, is a time trialist, because it's how you start your game, really. Racing against the clock, point to point, out and backs, as they're sometimes called. So out into the outback and then back again. So yeah, defending national champion is Brodie Chapman, and you don't wear the green and gold for nothing. She is absolutely fabulous. We love the Aussies and the way that they absolutely are so attack-minded. A sporting-based nation is how Australia can describe itself quite honourably. For the population they have, the champions that they produce is off the scale.
It is such an exciting part of the world, isn't it? Especially in time trials. Let's just go. When we finish here. But no, I think for me, what has really stood out, I guess this season, but always with Brodie Chapman, is the ability she has to be such a workhorse for her trade team. She has been a super domestique, but she's also then, when it transfers back to being her as an individual, she delivers. And I don't think that's an easy balance, because we know the psychology of being a domestique, working for others. You do completely transfer your mindset and how you perform that role. So to then put full focus back into yourself to delivering on the day, yeah, that takes a lot of skill. And Brodie Chapman brings so much experience to that, and she'll be great out there today.
Yeah, I mean, she's quite remarkable, to be honest, the sort of list of success that she's had, considering the knockbacks that everyone gets here, and just to maintain it. Third in the time trial at Giro, second in the time trial at the Turning Ladies Tour as well. Oh, she's brilliant. So let's see how she goes. Kiesenhofer is on course, the Austrian, to do something great, but she's never afraid to hide her discomfort. Let's put it that way. She was absolutely internally screaming there. Niemeyer is next. Away she goes. I mean, she is, of course, the national champion. And it was Germany that brought tea, apparently, to Rwanda back in the day. I don't know where they got the tea plants from. They probably nicked them from the Brits, who obviously nicked them from the Chinese, and then set up their own plantations in India. I know. I mean, Germany's had the monopoly on tea. No, it's everywhere, but particularly some of the best of it here in Rwanda. So well, anyway, Kiesenhofer, we're looking at it right now. Van der Breggen, 35, 44, 38, a minute and 53 up. It's rude.
I love your quotes. You know that, Carlton. They're all, I was going to say Twitter bios, ex-bios now. But in their own right, they stand alone, Carlton, legendary. 1.5 kilometres remaining for Anna van der Breggen. We're seeing her navigate these cobbles now. Interesting to look at her position on the bike, which I've talked about so much today. But back with Kiesenhofer here. And as you mentioned before, there are certain riders, actually Anna van der Breggen, very good at it, at just concealing any evidence of pain on their face. But Kiesenhofer is very much heart on sleeve. This is the amount of effort I'm pouring into this. She played down her chances coming into today, so she didn't have the ideal preparation. But she's another rider that always focuses on a target, evidently, because she won the Olympic Games that way.
Kievo, absolutely beautiful. It's almost like an inland sea, this. It's a landlocked nation, of course, Rwanda. But at one side of this great lake, you almost can't see the other side of it. It's absolutely beautiful and well worth a visit. back to the K Arena. Labous is about to engage, and we've got the very best now. This is where it starts to get properly serious. Juliet